Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really critical aspect of counterinsurgency, how effective different techniques actually are.
Yeah, and we're zooming in on a specific, pretty intense example, the French experience during the Algerian War.
We've got some fascinating source material excerpts from a U.S. Army War College quarterly article. It's called Losing the Moral Compass, Torture and Guerre Revolutionnaire in the Algerian War.
hmm So what we really want to unpack here is how certain French tactics, seem to work on the ground, tactically.
But then look at the bigger picture, right? The strategic consequences of those exact same tactics.
Exactly. And we'll be focusing quite a bit on the use of, well, harsh interrogation methods, including torture, and seeing their impact through that Algerian conflict, basically 1954 to 1962.
And folks might remember from our previous deep dive on Mao, that key lesson.
Oh, yeah. That counterinsurgency is ultimately won or lost on the political front, that political line of operation.
Keep that thought in mind as we look at the French versus the FLN, the Front de Libération Nationale. They were the main Algerian independence group.
Right. So context first. France and Algeria. It's a long, complicated history.
Over a century of French presence, wasn't it?
That's right. It started way back in the 1830s. And then, get this, in 1848, Algeria wasn't just a colony. It was declared an integral part of France.
Like French soil, divided into departments.
Exactly. Sounds integrated, but
Yeah.
the reality for the Algerian Muslim majority was very different.
Marginalized, you mean?
Yeah, politically, economically, they just didn't have the same rights or opportunities as the European settlers, the Pied Noirs or Colons.
In these colons, they held most of the power.
Disproportionately so, yeah. Even though they were the minority, there were settlers from all around the Med, really.
And then there were the distinct Algerian groups themselves.
Correct. You had the Berbers, the original inhabitants, mainly in the mountains with their own languages, tribal cultures.
And the Arabs.
The Arabs were the dominant group before the French showed up.
Huh.
More coastal, involved in trade, and they brought Islam.
Which became important.
Hugely important.
Yeah.
Islam acted as this powerful unifying identity for Algerians facing French rule.
Okay, so that sets the stage. French control, simmering resentment, a unifying identity. And then the FLN steps up. What was their game plan?
Well, resistance wasn't new, but by 54, the FLN was the main force. Their strategy, it definitely had echoes of Mao's theory. It happened in stage 8.
Okay, break that down.
So stage 1, consolidate power, eliminate rival nationalist groups, build a base, especially among the poorer Arabs and Berbers in, like, the rural areas.
Makes sense. Get your house in order first.
Right. Then stage 2, step up the pressure. Guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run stuff, but also, significantly, urban terrorism.
Why terrorism? What was the goal there?
Couple things. Gain followers by showing they could strike the French, but also, crucially, provoke a harsh French reaction.
To alienate the population further from the French.
Exactly. And grab international headlines. Then stage 3 was, well, the aspiration.
More conventional fighting.
Yeah, trying to get their military wing, the ALN, to actually control territory, maybe fight set-piece battles. But alongside all this military stuff, they had a really smart information strategy.
Ah, the propaganda side.
2 levels. Tactically, aimed at the local Muslim population, keep support strong, but strategically.
Aiming outside Algeria.
Yep. The UN, the international community, and maybe most importantly, public opinion back in France.
What was the message?
Hammering home the political unfairness, the colonial system, and what they framed as illegal and immoral French force. And torture allegations were absolutely central to that narrative.
Wow, okay. So they knew how to fight the information war. How did the French initially respond to all this?
At first, they kind of misread it, thought it was just, crime, isolated incidents, police matter.
But the FLN escalated.
By 56, yeah, it was undeniable. So the French sent in the army, big conventional operations. But that wasn't very effective against guerrillas.
So they needed a new approach. That's where this Guerre Revolutionnaire comes in.
Precisely. It wasn't like an official manual, but ideas bubbling up, especially from officers who'd been in Indochina and seen Mao's tactics firsthand.
And what was the core idea behind Guerre Revolutionnaire?
The realization that you couldn't just kill your way out. You had to win the loyalty of the people, offer them something.
What were they offering?
Well, the idea was this sort of liberal French democratic ideology, maybe with some strong Christian overtones, according to the source. A bit paternalistic, maybe.
Okay. And how did they try to do that? What were the actual counterinsurgency tactics?
They had about 5 key pillars. First, Isolate the insurgency geographically.
The Morris Line.
That's the big one.
Right.
Fences, minefields, watchtowers, constant patrols, air recon. Really effective at blocking support from Tunisia and Morocco. Hard to get fighters or weapons in.
Okay. Sealing the borders. What else?
Second, provide local security. That was the quadrillage system, grid system. Divide the country into zones, put troops in each zone, permanent garrisons, constant patrolling, control the space
Lots of boots on the ground.
everywhere. Third, effective strike operations. Keep mobile reserves, paratroopers, Foreign Legion, mechanized units ready to react fast to intelligence. Hit the FLN hard when they were found.
Right. Fourth must be the winning hearts and minds part.
You got it. Establishing French political legitimacy.
Ah.
That was the job of the Special Administrative Sections, the SS.
The SAS. What did it do?
They were key. Worked at the local level, trying to reform local government, provide doctors, schools, train local Algerian officials and police, all pushing these, democratic ideals.
And they raised local forces, too.
Yes, the Harka, indigenous military units fighting for the French. They became pretty effective and, crucially, a great source of local intelligence. The SS were seen as really important, quite effective in some ways.
Okay, so border control, local security, strike forces, political action.
Yeah.
What's the fifth?
Intelligence. Absolutely central. They built this multi-layered human intelligence, human T network.
Who are their sources?
Loyal Algerians turned FLN fighters, paid informants, and this is the crucial dark part. Aggressive interrogation, including torture. It became an integral part of gathering intel.
So torture wasn't just rogue units, it was systemic?
The source suggests it was deeply embedded in the system. All this intel from SAS, police, military units was funneled up, linked to strategic intel, even shared internationally like with Israel.
And the goal was speed.
Get actionable intel to the strike forces, fast. Hours, not days. They also did intense population control, detailed records, ID cards, census data, trying to map everyone.
And tactically, did this whole system seem to work for the French, at least initially?
Well, by about 1959-1960, militarily, the French seemed to be doing pretty well. The FLN couldn't operate in large groups anymore. Key leaders were being identified and neutralized. Attacks were smaller, less coordinated.
And the Harka units were effective.
Increasingly so, yeah. The insurgent organization was seriously degraded. On paper, militarily, it looked like Algeria was being pacified.
Okay, so that's the tactical picture, but let's dig into that intelligence piece more, specifically the torture. You said it was integral, but also a major defect.
Absolutely. The French military leadership, or at least significant parts of it, genuinely seemed to believe torture was necessary. A tool to get vital, time-sensitive tactical intelligence quickly.
The classic ticking bomb justification.
That kind of thinking, yes. Stop attacks, save lives. That was the rationale presented.
Were there other justifications offered?
Yeah, framing it as this ideological battle against communism, which they saw as inherently evil, so maybe normal rules didn't apply. Arguing that insurgency itself was different, needed different methods.
And the belief that they could control it, use it surgically?
Some believe that, yeah. Limited, controlled violence for specific tactical ends. But that ignores the psychological damage the way it spirals. It's a flawed understanding.
So, while it might have yielded some tactical intel, the strategic cost was devastating.
Immense. Completely counterproductive to their overall goal of keeping Algeria French, which required, ultimately, the consent or at least acquiescence of the Algerian people.
How did it backfire so badly? What were the specific strategic downsides?
Number one, and maybe the biggest, it destroyed any hope of winning the support of the Algerian Muslim population. That center of gravity.
How widespread was it?
The source cites estimates that in Algiers, during 56-57, maybe 40% of adult Muslim men were tortured or threatened with it. 40%.
That's staggering. You basically alienate an entire generation, an entire population.
Precisely. Created deep, lasting bitterness. Second, it fractured the French army itself. Big moral divisions between officers who opposed it and those who used or condoned it.
What happened to those who objected?
Often, their careers suffered. General Jacques Paris de la Beauhardière famously resigned in protest and was actually detained for a bit. Meanwhile, some officers linked to torture practices later rose to high ranks.
And the impact outside the military, back in France.
Huge. It eroded the army's moral standing, led to public protests, loss of political confidence in the war effort, made it much harder for the government to maintain support.
Did it lead to worse abuses?
It created a climate where boundaries were blurred. Things like the murder of captured FLN leaders like Larbi Ben Makiti happened in that context. And of course, it was pure gold for FLN propaganda.
Just handed them proof of French brutality on a plate.
Exactly. confirm their narrative for the international audience and for Algerians. And think about this erosion of legal and moral lines within the army, this sense of impunity. It directly contributed to parts of the army trying to overthrow the French government in the 1961 coup.
Against de Gaulle's move towards independence.
Yes, because they felt betrayed and believed they were above civilian authority. That's how deep the rot went, fueled in part by the normalization of these illegal methods.
So it all loops back, doesn't it? Back to that lesson from the Mao deep dive.
It absolutely does. Counterinsurgency is won or lost politically. The French, for all their tactical ingenuity and military effort,
Were destroying their own political objectives with tactics like torture. They couldn't win the hearts and minds because they were actively alienating them.
that's the core tragedy. They alienated the very population they needed. Even de Gaulle, the French president, admitted it later. He said the FLN, despite the military situation, had created a spirit, hence a people, hence a policy, hence a state,
The political reality trumped the military one.
which led to the ceasefire in March '62 and Algeria voting overwhelmingly for independence just months later in July.
So the final analysis here is pretty stark. Tactical gains from methods like torture are often illusory in counterinsurgency.
Or at least they come at an unacceptable strategic price. The damage to legitimacy, to population support, to the moral standing of your own forces. It just outweighs any short-term intel benefit.
The Algerian War is a brutal case study in that. Losing the moral compass leads to strategic defeat.
Couldn't put it better. It's a lesson that echoes down through conflicts ever since.
Definitely leaves you with a heavy thought. How those choices, made under pressure, maybe at a low tactical level, the ethical dimension.
Yeah, how they can have these massive, unforeseen ripple effects on the whole strategic outcome, especially when the real prize is the people's support, something to keep thinking about.
Absolutely. Thanks for walking us through that complex history.